I was sitting at the edge of the garden porch, my wrinkled hands resting on my lap, the morning sun gently warming my skin, when I noticed something strange. My son's wife, Rachel, walking toward me with a cake. Her steps were too careful, her smile too wide, her eyes shifting like she was hiding something. "Good morning, Mum," she said sweetly, holding the cake box in both hands. "I made this for you. Thought you deserved a little sweetness." I smiled softly, surprised by her sudden kindness. Rachel had never baked anything for me before. In fact, she barely acknowledged me most days. But here she was, handing me a moist-looking chocolate cake with little pink frosting flowers and a card taped on top that simply read, "Enjoy." I took it gently, thanking her. She turned and left quickly, glancing back once like she was expecting something. I didn't touch the cake. I stared at it for a while, a strange feeling settling in my stomach. Something was wrong. My instincts whispered that her smile wasn't real, that this wasn't a gift. It was a test, or worse. And just as I was about to bring it inside, an idea struck me. I knew exactly what I'd do with it. The next morning, I saw her again at the breakfast table. I placed my cup of tea down gently and smiled. "Thank you for the cake, Rachel," I said. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation. "Did you like it?" she asked. That's when I dropped the line. "Oh, I didn't eat it. I gave it to your mother." Her face changed instantly. The colour drained from her cheeks like milk spilling on dark wood. Her hands trembled. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. And in that silence, I knew I had caught her. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. Rachel's pale face said more than any words ever could. She stood frozen for a moment before stammering, "You gave it to my mother?" I nodded, sipping my tea calmly. She loved it, said it was the best chocolate cake she'd ever had. Rachel dropped her spoon. It clattered against the floor. "Excuse me," she muttered and hurried away from the table. "Now, let me take you back, 2 weeks earlier." It was the night of my son's birthday. The house had been buzzing with guests, laughter and fancy dishes. Rachel had been showing off in the kitchen all day, calling it her event. I stayed quiet. I always do. I was only invited because it would have looked bad if the old mother-in-law hadn't shown up. I knew my place, silent, tucked into the corner like wallpaper no one looks at anymore. During dinner, Rachel made sure to loudly thank everyone but me. "To our friends, our family, and everyone who made this evening so perfect," she raised her glass. "Especially those who helped in the kitchen, you know who you are," she winked at her mother. Not a glance at me. My son Daniel chuckled and wrapped an arm around Rachel's shoulder. I felt invisible. Again. Later that night, after everyone had left and I was helping clear the table, I overheard something. Rachel was whispering to her mother in the hallway. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their voices carried. "She's still here?" her mother asked. Rachel sighed. "She won't eat anything unless it's homemade. So tomorrow I'll make something special. Let's see how she likes that." They both laughed. I froze. I didn't know exactly what they meant, but I knew it wasn't kind. I knew that laugh. It was the kind women share when they think they've won something. I didn't confront them. I just kept wiping the table, but my heart was already alert. The next day I acted normal. I smiled when Rachel came in with the cake. I accepted it without suspicion, just as she expected. But instead of eating it, I quietly called her mother. "Hello, Carol," I said warmly. "I wanted to drop something off. Rachel made it for me, but I thought you should enjoy it too. After all, you're always so generous with your recipes." She was flattered. I brought it to her house myself, and even made tea while we chatted. She cut 2 slices, one for her, one for her neighbour she was expecting later. I politely declined. I sat across from her, sipping my tea, watching her take the first bite. She chewed slowly, then paused. "This cake tastes strange," she muttered. I didn't say anything. She laughed it off and took another bite. Oh well, maybe Rachel's trying something new. That night I slept with a strange calm in my chest. The next morning, when I mentioned what I'd done, Rachel's reaction told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't scared because I wasted a cake. She was scared because of what she put in it. The next few days were tense. Rachel avoided me. Her mother was hospitalized briefly with stomach issues, nothing life-threatening but odd enough that it raised eyebrows. Daniel was confused but too busy with work to notice the tension. I watched silently. I had no proof, just instinct. But I didn't need proof. I needed awareness. Rachel now knew I wasn't a fool. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen to find Rachel cleaning furiously. She jumped when she saw me. I gave her a smile. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone what was inside the cake. You already did that with your reaction. Her face twisted. You're crazy, she hissed. Maybe, I replied, but I'm still standing. And now she knew. I would never eat anything she touched again, and she would never see me as harmless again either. But that was only the beginning. Because the next morning, I received a letter addressed to me from a private investigator. The envelope was thick and cream-coloured, resting innocently on my doorstep like any other piece of mail. But the weight in my chest told me this was no ordinary letter. I didn't recognise the name in the return address, Mason Blake Investigative Services, and I certainly wasn't expecting any mail. Carefully, I picked it up, brought it inside, and sat down at the kitchen table. The house was silent. Rachel had taken Daniel out for brunch. A marriage check-in, she'd called it. I waited until I was completely alone before I opened it. Inside was a short typed letter and a small flash drive. The letter read, Mrs. Evelyn Carter, this is in response to the inquiry placed under your name on the 6th of this month, referencing subject Rachel Carter. Per your instructions, we've enclosed preliminary findings. If this was sent to you in error or you did not authorize this investigation, please contact us immediately. I blinked. I never hired any investigator. I hadn't spoken to a soul about Rachel. My hands trembled slightly as I picked up the flash drive. Something was wrong. Or maybe something was finally being made right. I plugged it into the old laptop Daniel left me years ago. It hummed to life slowly, its fan whirring like a tired breath. On the drive was a folder titled simply, Subject RC Inside. Photos, dozens, time-stamped, dated, labelled. Rachel, at a pharmacy, buying something under a different name. Rachel, meeting a man in a grey car parked behind a salon. Rachel, at a storage unit. Rachel, holding what looked like a small vial in a gloved hand. Rachel, arguing with someone who looked like her own mother. There were also receipts, surveillance notes, location data. Everything meticulously tracked. My heart sank lower with each file I opened. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt like I was watching someone else's life unravel. But it was mine. My daughter-in-law, the woman who lived under my roof, had a secret life that felt more like a spy movie than reality. But one detail stood out above all. On the note for the photo at the pharmacy, the investigator had written in bold, Subject, purchased non-prescription compounds known to cause nausea and digestive disruption if ingested in large quantities. I covered my mouth. My instinct had been right all along. The cake wasn't just suspicious. It was dangerous. But who had ordered this investigation? I hadn't. I had never even heard of Mason Blake before today. I flipped back to the envelope and noticed something. There was a tiny sticker seal on the back with initials DC Daniel Carter. My son. Could it be? Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. Could my son have hired someone to look into his own wife? Had he begun to suspect her too? The very thought crushed me and filled me with relief at the same time. Later that afternoon, Daniel came home alone. No Rachel in sight. I was in the garden clipping dry rose stems when he walked over and cleared his throat. "Hey, Mum." "Hi, sweetheart," I said, still pretending everything was normal. He hesitated. "Did you, get anything in the mail today?" I turned slowly and looked him straight in the eyes. "Yes, I did." He sat down next to me without another word. He looked older than usual, his face tired, eyes heavy. "I didn't know who else to trust," he whispered. "But lately she's been different, secretive. And last week, she told me you were getting in the way. I didn't know what she meant." "She baked me a cake," I said flatly. He turned sharply. "Did you eat it?" I shook my head. "I gave it to her mother." Daniel's eyes widened. Oh my God." "She's fine now," I added quickly. "But I saw Rachel's face when I told her. I saw the fear." Daniel buried his head in his hands. "Mum, I think Rachel's trying to poison you or test you or... I don't even know. I didn't want to believe it. That's why I hired someone. I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind." "You're not," I said softly. He looked up, a quiet determination rising in his eyes. "I want to confront her, but I need you to act normal for now. Can you do that?" I nodded. "I've been doing it for years." Over the next few days, Rachel returned to her usual patterns, overly sweet when Daniel was home, distant and dismissive when he wasn't. She didn't mention the cake again. But now I noticed more things, subtle glances toward the trash can, sniffing her own food when I was near, checking her tea if I poured it. She was paranoid. She was on edge. And that meant something was about to crack. One night, I woke up to soft voices in the hallway. I got up slowly and moved toward the crack in the door. "She knows, Daniel. I can feel it," Rachel hissed. "So what if she does?" Daniel replied, cold. "It's not like you've been subtle." There was a pause. Then Rachel snapped, "Are you siding with her now?" "I'm siding with the truth." She didn't respond, just the sound of footsteps stomping down the stairs. The next morning, Rachel didn't come down for breakfast. Instead, I found a small envelope on the kitchen counter, just like the one I had received, with my name scribbled on the front in a shaking hand. Inside was a note. Just 6 words. "I didn't mean to hurt you." And underneath it a second flash drive. I stared at it. My fingers didn't want to touch it, but I knew I had to. I plugged it in. This time, only one video file. It was grainy, shaky, taken from a phone camera. Rachel, sitting alone in her car, crying, speaking into the phone camera like a confession. I didn't want to do it, but she kept getting in the way. I needed space. I needed Daniel to myself. I thought maybe if she got sick, she'd move out. I never meant to. I didn't think she sobbed. I just needed her to leave. She wiped her face and looked directly into the camera. She wasn't supposed to eat the cake. And that's when I paused the video. Because something was off. I hadn't eaten the cake. Her mother had. And now, I had a whole new problem. Because if Rachel had recorded this before I told her what I did with the cake, then who was the cake really meant for, and what exactly was inside? I sat frozen at the kitchen table. The morning light streamed through the curtains, making the confession video flicker on my laptop screen. My tea had gone cold. My hands stayed still, as though any movement might break the heavy silence surrounding me. She said it clearly. She wasn't supposed to eat the cake. But I hadn't eaten it. Her mother had, which meant Rachel baked that cake for someone else. And the only person who could have eaten it was me. Which meant, despite her later panic, Rachel already knew what she'd done. She had recorded the confession before she ever found out who'd actually eaten it. My stomach turned. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. I opened the laptop again, rewinding the video and watching her words closely. Her eyes were red. Her mascara had streaked down her face. She was scared, yes, but not regretful. And she was talking to someone. Not just venting, not just confessing. She was reporting. I noticed a small nameplate hanging from her car's rearview mirror in the reflection. CL Carol Lynn, her mother. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. I stood up slowly and grabbed my keys. There was one place I hadn't dared to search, Rachel's private kitchen notebook. She always kept it in a locked drawer by the oven. I'd once asked her for a cookie recipe and she barked back, "It's family only." But I was family. At least, I used to be. The house was quiet. Rachel had gone out again and Daniel was at work. I slid open the kitchen drawer with a screwdriver I'd tucked in my cardigan. The lock popped open with a soft snap. Inside were 3 small notebooks, a plastic bag filled with labelled spices, and a folded sheet of paper marked, "Do not touch." My hands trembled as I pulled out the top notebook. It smelled faintly of vanilla and pepper. The first few pages had innocent recipes, pancakes, lasagna, birthday cake. But then, midway through the second notebook, I found something strange, a section labelled Persuasive Treats. Each page had odd ingredients: ground bitterroot for drowsiness, oil of castor leaf, nausea-inducing, crushed poppy husk, mild sedative, all mixed into chocolate almond dream cake. My breath caught. That was the cake she gave me. Each page had notes scribbled in the margins. Start small, they won't know. Only once a week or they'll notice. Make them look sick, not poisoned. There was even a checklist titled, "Remove her slowly cake. Week 1, tea, week 2, pillow powder, week 3. I slammed the notebook shut and dropped it on the counter like it burned my hands. Rachel hadn't just planned to scare me off. She was trying to erase me, from the inside out. Just then, I heard the front door creak. Rachel's voice. "I forgot my wallet." My heart thumped hard. I shoved the notebook back in the drawer, slid it shut, and tried to look normal. I grabbed a towel and began wiping the counter. She stepped into the kitchen, eyeing me suspiciously. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Just wiping up," I said casually. Her eyes flicked to the drawer. She knew. "I thought you didn't like cleaning in the mornings," she said slowly. "I'm feeling inspired today," I smiled without blinking. She forced a grin and walked over to her purse. But then her eyes narrowed at the towel in my hand. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm perfect," I replied. "Thanks again for the cake. Your mother said it tasted a little different." Her hand paused on her purse strap. I'm sure she was just surprised. It was a new recipe. "Ah," I nodded. "Was it the almond that gave it that special effect?" Her lips parted just slightly, then snapped shut again. "I should go," she muttered, walking out quickly. I waited, counted to 30, then rushed back to the drawer. I had to get more evidence before she came back. I flipped to the last few pages of the third notebook. That's when I saw it. A hand-drawn diagram of a floor plan. My bedroom. Next to it, loose floorboard under dresser, good for storing if Mum snoops. There was something hidden in my own room. I didn't wait. I ran upstairs, breath catching in my throat. I pulled the dresser aside, my hands aching. I knelt on the old hardwood floor, tapping until I found it. A soft, hollow thunk. I wedged it open with the edge of my nail file. Inside was a black pouch. I pulled it out and unzipped it slowly. 3 small vials, one labelled sleep, one labelled skin, and one that simply read, final. There was a folded photo next to them. It was a picture of me, sleeping. My blood went cold. She had been in my room, taking pictures of me, studying me, planning my end. I stood there, frozen, gripping the photo, my breath shaky. Downstairs, I heard the door again. Rachel was back. This time she wasn't alone. And then a voice I hadn't heard in a long time echoed from the hallway. Her mother. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood in my bedroom holding a black pouch filled with vials, each one possibly deadly. and a photo of myself sleeping like prey being studied by a predator. Downstairs, Rachel's voice was sharp and hushed. "Keep your voice down. She's here." Then her mother's voice, Carol's, snapped back. "Why would you leave the cake with her? Are you insane?" I clutched the photo tighter. My hands were shaking, but my mind was calm. It was a strange stillness, like a storm pulling back before it tears the world apart. "I didn't think she'd give it away," Rachel hissed. "I thought she'd eat it and get sick. Just a little sick. Enough to leave. That was the plan. She's old, Rachel. What if it had killed her? You could have ruined everything." I stepped softly to my door and opened it just a crack. Their voices floated up the staircase like smoke. "She ruined my life," Rachel whispered bitterly. "She's in our house. She always looks at me like I'll never be good enough. She's always so perfect and silent and watching, like she owns everything." "She does own it. That house is still in her name," Carol said flatly. There was a pause. Rachel said, "Not for long. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot." I pressed the door closed, my breath catching. So that's what this was really about. Not just jealousy or hatred. This was about control, property, power. My son didn't know it, but Rachel wanted more than just a mother-in-law out of the way. She wanted the house, and she almost got it. I had to act carefully. One wrong move and she could turn Daniel against me. I needed to outplay her, quietly. I hid the vials inside my coat pocket and stepped into the hallway, forcing my breathing to steady. Then I slowly walked down the stairs. Their voices stopped the second my foot hit the wooden step. "Ah, Evelyn," Carol said, flashing a fake smile like she'd just bitten into a lemon. "How nice to see you." Rachel's eyes darted to my hands. I smiled sweetly. "I was just going to make some tea. Would you both like some?" Rachel's throat moved as she swallowed. "No thanks, I'm good." Carol shook her head too quickly. "We were just leaving, actually." "Of course," I said softly. "By the way, Rachel, I found your notebook." Her face snapped toward me. "What notebook?" "You know," I replied calmly. "The one with the almond cake recipe." "So, detailed." Rachel's face drained again, the same way it had when I told her about the cake. Carol stepped in fast. "I'm sure she meant nothing by it. It's just writing. Women journal all kinds of nonsense." I stepped closer. "True. But this kind of nonsense has ingredients, dosages, plans." Carol moved to block her daughter slightly. "Evelyn, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm sure Daniel could take you to see someone. Talk to someone." I held up the pouch gently. "Maybe he can take all of us. We can show them this. See what they think of this nonsense." Rachel let out a sharp breath. "You wouldn't dare." "I didn't eat the cake," I said again. "But someone else did. Someone who mattered to you. And she ended up in the hospital. The doctors called it food poisoning. What do you think the police will call it?" Carol grabbed Rachel's arm. "Come on, we're leaving. Now." "No," I said, stopping them. "Not yet." Carol froze. Rachel looked at me with fire in her eyes. "What do you want?" I smiled. "I want you both to sit down and listen." They hesitated, but they knew they had no cards left. "I'm not calling the police, not yet, because unlike you, I don't destroy families. I watch, I remember, and I move silently." They sat down reluctantly. "You want this house? You want Daniel to yourself?" I leaned in. "You almost got both. But now, you're going to listen to me." I pulled out the picture and laid it on the table. Rachel gasped. "You were in my room," I said. "Took this while I was sleeping, so let's be honest now." Rachel stayed silent, so I asked directly, "Who was the cake really meant for? Me or your mother?" Silence. Then Carol spoke, her voice like gravel. "She told me she wanted to scare me. thought I was too controlling, that if I got sick, maybe I'd back off, let her make decisions, be the new matriarch. Rachel shot her a look. I never meant for you to eat it all, I swear. Carol stood, her chair screeching against the floor. I knew you were ungrateful, but I didn't know you were insane. Rachel stood too. I didn't do this alone. You were the one who told me how to use that root powder. They were unravelling in front of me. You taught me. You told me about subtle poisons, herbal tricks. Carol was trembling now. I told you as a joke. I didn't mean for you to actually... You gave me the first vial. They were turning on each other. I let them. I picked up the flash drive. I have this video, Rachel, your little crying monologue. And now I have your mother's confession too. Carol turned to me. What do you want? I didn't answer immediately. I stared at them, mother and daughter, once united in secrecy, now breaking under pressure. I want you gone, I finally said, both of you. Leave my house, leave Daniel alone, or I send all of this to the police, with a note that says attempted poisoning of an elder. Rachel's voice cracked. Daniel would never believe... I cut her off. He already does. Her mouth shut. Carol clenched her purse. You'll regret this. No, I said, you will. They left that day, quiet, pale, not even bothering to slam the door. But something still bothered me. A few nights later, I was reading through the last few pages of Rachel's notebook again. And that's when I saw something I'd missed before. A small sketch, not of my bedroom this time, but of the bank vault across town. With a note, access box before the will update. He'll never know. And scribbled in the corner, if I fail with the cake, use plan B. The sketch haunted me for days. It was rough, rushed, clearly drawn by someone who thought they'd outsmarted everyone. But it was unmistakable, the old stone bank building downtown with its brass-plated vault room. Rachel had written, access box before the will update, he'll never know. And then below that, in chilling handwriting, if I fail with the cake, use plan B. I sat at the kitchen table, holding the notebook in one hand and my teacup in the other. But this time, I couldn't bring the cup to my lips. What was plan B? And what exactly was inside that box? It was time to find out. I didn't tell Daniel where I was going. I didn't want to worry him. Not yet. I took a cab into town and walked into the bank like I was there to renew a safety deposit box. The woman behind the counter gave me a tired smile, then typed into her computer. I'm sorry, she said. Do you have the key to box 428B? I smiled and handed her the old silver key I'd found hidden in Rachel's second purse, buried under cosmetics and empty gum wrappers. Her eyes widened. Oh, yes. This matches. She led me into the vault. The thick doors closed behind us with a slow, booming clang. She slid the narrow metal box out onto the counter and nodded. You can have privacy. I waited until she left, then took a deep breath. I opened it. Inside were three things. A sealed legal envelope addressed to Daniel Carter, open only if mother dies. A velvet jewellery pouch, a folded piece of hotel stationery that simply read, Plan B, replace tea powder. Tell Daniel she's becoming paranoid. My blood ran cold. The envelope was real, signed, dated and notarized. I recognized the lawyer's seal. The name matched Daniel's estate attorney. Inside was a forged will. A fake. It claimed Daniel's full inheritance would pass directly to Rachel, bypassing me entirely. It even claimed I had requested it in my fading mental state. In the velvet pouch, I found 2 wedding bands, mine and my late husband's, stolen from my drawer months ago. I'd thought I had simply misplaced them. But they were here, in a vault, in her possession. She had been planning to erase me, replace me. Even after the failed cake plan, she had another route. Make me appear mentally unstable, adjust Daniel's perception, get full control of the estate. She thought I wouldn't survive long enough to fight back, but she was wrong. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you've stayed with me this far, thank you. You're the reason I made it to the end. I took everything in the box, every fake document, every stolen item, and brought it straight to my lawyer. Within 72 hours, an emergency injunction was filed. Rachel was served papers for attempted fraud and forgery. The hospital reports, her confession video, her mother's panicked statements, it all came together like dominoes falling into place. Daniel. He was devastated. I watched him read the will she'd forged, the receipts for powders she'd bought under aliases, and the video of her whispering into her phone. He said nothing for a long time. Then he said, "She made me feel like I was choosing between her and you, and I almost chose wrong." We hugged in silence. I didn't cry, I didn't need to. Rachel tried to fight back through lawyers, through gossip, through crocodile tears on social media, but the evidence was too strong, too detailed. In court, she blamed her mother blamed her. The judge blamed them both. Carol received 2 years probation for accessory charges and banned contact with me or Daniel. Rachel wasn't so lucky. She was sentenced to 5 years. 2 years for attempted poisoning, 3 for fraud and forgery. I attended every hearing, sat in the same seat, wore the same pearls, said nothing, until the day she was taken away in handcuffs. As she was led out of the courtroom, she turned to look at me. I don't know what she expected. Anger, revenge, satisfaction. I gave her none of that, just a long, steady look. And then I stood, walked away. She no longer existed in my world. Daniel and I moved shortly after. We donated the house, not for the memories, but for the weight it carried. Some walls remember too much. We now live in a small home near the lake. Peaceful. Quiet. I bake my own cakes now, from scratch. No secrets, just sweetness. And sometimes, when the sun sets and the light hits just right, I sit on the porch and smile. Because I survived the unthinkable, because evil failed, because the cake never won.